For instance, if we say rose, we all know what a rose is, but there really is no place in your brain where there is roses. But when I say rose, yellow, white, red, lots of petals, a few petals, smells, doesn't smell, thorny, no thorny, tea roses, big roses. All I'm saying is there's all these roses, and you have complete access to them all. And he's saying, I think it's just like off storage. We just have all this stuff. And as long as we're alert and awake, we can just pull it in constantly. Fear, shame. Where is that in your actual brain? There is no real fear, shame place, but we feel it and we know it. And these are things that he said are all things. Now here's the funny thing. A.T. Still said that when he looked at the x-ray, remember I told you 30 million vibrations a second, and we can see through the body. He tells the student, if we can knock that up, we could break open the whole universe. 30 million, we see through the solid body. 1 trillion, we see everything, everywhere, at all times. So what I'm looking at is what Dr. Hammerhoff discovered in these microtubules. The very point of where the spirit is might be just like a tuning fork that is inside your brain that is basically giving you complete access to the great beyond as long as it's vibrating. And that as soon as you die, all your thoughts and stuff are with you in the great beyond, and the body's done. And that's what Dr. Still said. The body is different in death. It doesn't scream out when you cut it. Everything's there that you need, but something's changed. All the parts are there, but something's changed. And then he says, well, what is this spirit? He goes, well, think of it like the emperor. It runs the body. And this is where we get a better idea of what the body is and the spirit is. See, the body actually, its sole job is to stay functioning so the spirit can get around through it. It's like a car, you know. We step inside our car. We're not the car, but we're in the car, and we drive the car, and we make the car do all these things, but we're not the car. And we can step out of that car. And it's kind of like the spirit. It steps into this body, creates it, and now it's got this body, but it's not the body. It can run around. And so basically that's what we're looking at. So the whole idea is if we take care of the tires, we keep gas in it, we don't run it into trees, that car will take us a good distance, but it'll eventually wear out. Same thing with our body. Eat well, exercise, positive thinking. And that body will last for maybe 90 years, which is why we accumulate all these ideas that Dr. Still says we then take with us. And Stuart Hammerhoff explains how that could happen. It's already stored, because I always worried, if all this stuff is in my brain and then I die, how does it get out of my brain? But what Stuart says is it's already downloaded to the great beyond, and you already have access to it. It's not in the physical brain, it's actually beyond it. So you've got it already. So that's how it works. Then A.T. Still says, well, how big do you think the spirit is? And I used to think, well, probably fingertip to fingertip, toe to toe, He says, might be the size of an atom. Might be smaller than that. He goes, look at it this way. We're in this hotel. He uses a house, but anyway, we're in this hotel. And there's staff, and there's things, and there's heating, and it's all managed. But the person who's actually running it at the helm is pretty small in proportion to all that's going on around here, making it all happen. And that's kind of how the body, all these things are happening in the body. But the spirit itself might not be very big in proportion to the size of the body and what's going on in it. Because size doesn't really matter. An atom might be actually too big for the spirit. But he goes, it does exist, and it probably has some physical element. But it's very fine. That's just kind of belief on it. So this is the idea, is that the body takes us on this journey, just like your car. We can go to Niagara Falls if we want. We can go to Vancouver, which I love. And what I'm saying is, the body will take you around so you can absorb all these ideas. He goes, and this is why I believe we're immortal. Because when an animal is born, a chicken hatches out. You put a fly down, you put a spider down, the chicken will eat the fly, the baby chick, and leave the spider. It knows that it can't eat that spider at that age because the poison would be too much for it. It'll eat the fly and it'll leave the spider. How does it know? But it knows. Raised in an incubator, put outside, a hawk flies over and the shadow. It instantly knows that shadow is a bad and runs. It's never seen a hawk, but it knows. It's born with everything it needs. We come into this world, we're a blank slate. We don't, and those of you that have children already, they don't know anything. And they slowly pull it all together and create some sense of things. And so this is what we do. We keep learning all of our life. Hopefully tonight you've learned something. That we keep gathering these pieces. And what A.T. Still says is just as the animal, a colt drops from the mother, it knows to nurse, and within an hour it can run with the herd. It knows everything it needs to know pretty much at birth. And how old do you have to be before a kid could live on its own? 5, 6, 10? I've got a 24-year-old, I'm still doubting it. What I'm saying is, we don't have that. I mean, it takes a long time for independence. And it takes a long time for us to do anything. But that's because we're growing these thoughts. And Dr. Still says, why would we keep, nature is perfect. He goes, look out here. And this is why I had the house, the school was filled with taxidermy. Because each animal, whether it would be the eyes on the tails of a peacock that made it more intimidating than it actually was, or the claws and teeth of a puma. He had a giant moose, had a 70-inch, the biggest moose ever discovered was in the school at that time, with a 70-inch rack of horns. But the idea was to show you the diversity, but everything worked with that animal perfectly. And so Dr. Still says nature is perfect. So if we are able to remember and learn things, why would we then die and it's all done? Makes no sense. Because nature is perfect. Look at it. So we must do something with that information at the end, or we wouldn't be accumulating it for 90 years. Or longer for some of us. I don't want to cheat anybody else out of a 100-year span. And the way we're going to live longer, probably, if we take care of ourselves. So this is the thing is, A.T. Still was convinced we were immortal because of the way that we have to learn and that we accumulate and that there has to be an ultimate purpose, that we then take that with us and go to a higher dimension after we leave this life. And that was his sincere belief. The reason that what got him set off on this thinking, his father, who was a preacher doctor, been preaching since he was about 19 years old, 57 years or so by the time he died. And as his dad had pneumonia, and he was a doctor, he could self-prescribe and self-diagnose, he said, A.T., what do you think? He goes, Dad, I think you're not going to be here in the morning with pneumonia. They don't have the cures and things that we can do today. And his dad said, yeah, I kind of concur. I don't think I'll be here in the morning. And A.T. Still said, well, Dad, I just want to know what's going to happen to you. His dad said, well, I don't really know. It's like, my gosh, you're the most religious man I know. You're the most godly person I know. He goes, I hope there'll be a benevolent God waiting for me. But I don't know. It's all a jump into the dark. And then his dad died. And A.T. Still said, my father worked too hard for too many years to die not knowing. He really didn't know. He hoped. And he had faith. But he also said, but I don't know. He wasn't going to lie to his son.